Good afternoon, everyone. We'll bring the meeting of the Washoe County Regional Animal Services Advisory Board to order. It is Friday, October 18th, 2024, at 2 p.m. And I'm going to have our clerk read the roll, please. Call the roll.
Chair Naomi Dewar.
Here.
Vice Chair Paul Anderson. Here. Member Trudy Broussard. Present. Member Dias Dixon.
Present.
Member Mariluz Garcia.
Here.
Member Jill Fisher.
Here.
And Member Julie McMahon. Present. All members are present.
All right. Thank you so much, and thanks, everyone, for being here. We'll do next the salute to the flag. And Jill, would you mind leading us?
Not at all. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Thank you for that. And we'll turn to item 3, and I'm going to ask Madam Clerk if you could read the instructions for providing public comment via Zoom and phone. Or maybe it's Mr. Ross, I'm not sure which.
Members of the public may submit public comment by attending the meeting via webinar, teleconference, or attending by telephone only. To provide public comment via Zoom, log on to the Zoom webinar and utilize the raise hand feature during any public comment period. To provide public comment via telephone, press *9 to raise hand and *6 to mute and unmute.
All right, thank you. And with that, let me ask under number 4 if there is any public comment, Madam Clerk.
We have no public comment at this time.
And is that both in the room and on the Zoom?
Correct.
Okay, and if everyone on Zoom heard, if you want to be recognized, please raise your hand so we can
We do
properly-
have public comment now.
Oh, we do, on Zoom?
Yes.
Okay. And just to continue, and then if you can raise your hand on the Zoom, and I don't know if there's a separate category, Madam Clerk, for the participants versus people that are in non-participants, they're all participants?
Yes, they're all considered
Okay.
participants.
All right, thank you. Could you let us know who would like to speak?
All right, so it looks like we have Frank Gibbons of Reno would like to speak.
Okay. Mr. Gibbons, please proceed, and you have 3 minutes to address the board.
Thank you very much. I am an adopter from the Humane Society. This is, I don't know if you can see it. This is Emma. I guess you can't see it. Emma May. I am also a volunteer, excuse me, past volunteer, and my area of expertise was dishwashing, washing the dishes for the dogs. Anyway, I believe the animal services facility was built in the 15 to 20 year time period. So it's aging, starting to age. And there's been a lot of changes during that time. A lot of changes in the demographics of Washoe County, population size, types of people moving in, as well as what we would call best practices for animal services. And because of that, and maybe this is already being done, I apologize if it is, perhaps it's time to pull together the stakeholders and to take a look and see what these changes, are meaning and will mean in the future in line of best practices for animal services. When I was on the board at the Kitsap Humane Society in Washington State, we went through a process. We ended up expanding our adoption center, the kennels, and later the veterinary services. And we used some technical consultants to help us understand, what are the best practices for facilities and things like that. And I think this would not only benefit our customers, but also the employees in terms of, the stress that's put on them. So that's my comment, and I would definitely suggest if we do something in the facilities area, put in a dishwashing machine. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Dr. Gibbons. I do want to ask a question. Did you work with the Humane Society locally here in Reno or Carson, or was that all elsewhere?
No, it was all in with the Kitsap County Humane Society in Washington State.
Okay, and then did you, when you logged on to the Zoom, did you leave your phone number and your email?
No, I
Okay, could you reach out to our staff and the phone number I think is on the agenda? I think there is a phone number on the agenda, and consult with them. We're the advisory board to the Washoe County Animal Services, which is compilation of Reno, Sparks, and Washoe County come together. And then our partner is the Humane Society, so we share a building with them. And I don't know, I know they have their own board. I don't know if they also have an advisory board, but we will forward that comment over to them. And I know they're here in the audience and they heard the comment, but we'll like to get your contact information so we could send it over to them. Okay?
certainly.
All right, thank you so much
Certainly.
for participating. Really appreciate it. And then, thank you again. Madam Clerk, are there any other comments?
There are no further comments.
Okay. All right, again, thank you, Dr. Gibbons. We'll move on to item 5, which is approval of the July 26, 2024 meeting minutes. And I hope everyone's had a chance to just review those. I'm looking for a motion for approval. If anyone has
Julie
any
McMahon.
changes, please speak up.
I was able to read through them this afternoon, and I will move to approve them.
All right. All right, so we have a motion from Julie McMahon and a second from Jill Fisher. Let me ask, are there any comments or changes to the minutes?
Quick comment.
Yeah.
Judy
Oh,
seconded.
Trudy did. Oh, sorry, I misheard. That was seconded by Trudy Broussard. Hearing none, all in favor of approving the minutes, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, motion passes unanimously. We're going to turn our attention to item 6, which is the director's report, something we look forward to every meeting. It's always very information-packed.
Good afternoon, Cheyenne Shull for the record. Thank you all for being here. The statistics that I'll be sharing with you today are from Q1, fiscal year 25, and as a reminder, it's a comparison of the same quarter from the 4 previous fiscal years. So any differences that I highlight will be comparing last year's same quarter. Why are they not synced? Okay, I guess as long as, is your slide showing animal intake as your
Yeah.
your screen? Okay. So starting with the animal intake, as a reminder, the caretakers that we have on staff and the total number of staff that we have to take care of the animals, we've got 6 animal caretakers and 1 lead caretaker and 1 shelter supervisor, with the primary responsibility of taking care of all the animals that come into our facility, as well as handling the public when they come in to redeem their animals and microchipping animals when people come in to ask for that service. The animals that we saw impounded last quarter reflected a decrease in cat intakes. We saw approximately 15% decrease in cats. So if you're looking at this slide, the last column there is fiscal year 25. The light blue at the bottom is cats. We took in a total of 1,139 cats and 1,577 dogs, with an increase of approximately 5% in dogs last quarter. Of note, we saw a pretty significant jump in our miscellaneous animals, which consists of, we got a lot of fish in last quarter that were abandoned. And so when you have an aquarium full of 100 guppies, that will get your numbers skewed slightly in terms of those miscellaneous animals. But it incorporates birds, reptiles, a lot of those miscellaneous animals, rabbits, and things like that, for a total of 3,072 animals last quarter that we took in. The length of stay for dogs is the slide you're looking at here. So the total intakes, again, is that yellow slide on your left, with the same comparison over the last several quarters. And the green table is the length of stay. And so one thing I wanted to highlight and note is I think everyone that was on the board last year recognized that we had a really difficult year. For the number of animals that we were handling, the length of stay was the highest that we've seen in the last 5 years. So we definitely are appreciative of the decrease in the length of stay at 7.5 days on average for dogs. This slide is representative of cat intake and cat length of stay. So we took in 1,139 cats last quarter, and their length of stay is 5.7 days, again, reflective over a tough year last year. Length of stay was significantly higher. We were at about 6.8 days last year on average. So as we talk about every time we come together for this meeting, every day over that 5-day stray hold is a burden for us. And so moving them expeditiously through the shelter system is of utmost priority. This table shows the number of animals that were impounded that already had a microchip. And the number of cats that we impounded is on the left, and the number of those cats that we took in out of 1,139, 12% were already microchipped. So I'm happy to see that number increased from the last 3 years quarter, same quarter. We're aiming to aim resources toward cat owners so that we can have more reunification of cats. So I hope that that number continues to rise, that we can get those cats home quickly. The table, or moving to the right, represents dogs. So we took in a total of 1,577 dogs. Approximately 48% of those were microchipped already. So that seems to fall right in line with the average over the last several quarters. We will continue our free microchipping and marketing that program because it is a value to us. Last quarter, this board asked for us to bring back a statistic that explains the length of stay difference between an animal that is microchipped versus not microchipped. And we did pull those statistics. So this is just for the calendar year of 2023, just to give you an example. Dogs that come in with no chip average 6.58 days versus a dog with a chip at 2.41 days. So as you can tell, there's a significant increase in that efficiency of getting those animals back home if they're microchipped already. Cats, if they are not chipped, their average length of stay is 5.9 days, and with a chip, 4.52 days. So not a huge increase on cats, but again, it's one of those areas that we're aiming to work on with education and marketing and getting out there to our cat-owning population about the importance of ID as well as microchips and to come look for their cats. So that's one of those things we're aiming to work on. One other interesting thing that I hope to incorporate into this report for the future is we went a step ahead of just calculating the difference in length of stay. We also wanted to calculate an approximate cost savings for those animals. And of course, this isn't only an approximation because it depends on a lot of factors. It depends on how long the animal stays. It depends on if it's impounded. But what we looked at is the average cost savings for an animal that is microchipped. And so for dogs, it is $162 per dog that goes home by way of microchip. And cats is much lower. It's around the $21 range for cats. But the total that we were able to calculate for calendar 23 is over $170,000 in savings by being able to get animals home by way of microchip. So I would say that the $8,000 that we spent on microchips last year was a great investment.
Yeah.
So moving on now to outcomes of animals. This particular dog I thought was a great story to share. This dog went missing on New Year's Eve last year. Fireworks scared the dog, and unfortunately the dog was missing for several months and had a microchip though. And so when the dog came into animal services late this summer, we were able to get a hold of the owner, and they came right down to redeem their pet. So again, sort of supporting that importance of microchipping and making sure that information is up to date. We'll talk about how animals left the shelter now. This slide is representative of animals that were picked up in the field and reunited in the field. So they were not brought to the shelter. So out of all of the stray animals that we picked up, 36% were reunited in the field. So if you're looking at that 2025 quarter from the bottom up, you're looking at the writing on this printout is tiny. I believe that's cats on the bottom. Oh no, that's strays returned. Yes, you're right. So again, the importance of having animals microchipped and getting them reunited in the field, saving quite a bit of money, not having to impound those animals is something that we celebrate. The next slide that you're looking at here, animals that were reunited once they were impounded, that came in over the counter at the shelter. 33% of those animals last quarter were returned from the shelter that came into the shelter out of a total of 999 animals. This slide represents our partners with adoption facilities. So not only our partnership with the Humane Society, all of our other partners in the community as well that help us with providing adoptions for animals that don't get claimed by their owners. So the two tables that you're looking at here on the left are the actual numbers, and on the right are the percentages of all transfers out. And from top to bottom, we've got Nevada Humane Society, Options Veterinary Care, the SPCA of Northern Nevada, Rescue, and other rescue partners are also lumped in there for a grand total of 1,371 dogs and cats transferred out to adoption partners last quarter. We are ever so appreciative of all of our adoption partners for helping us get animals into adoptive homes and providing live outcomes.
I have a question on this slide,
Sure.
Cheyenne. So is Pet Network no longer doing this? There's 0 from a pretty high number of 41.
Pet Network does transfer animals from us based on their availability. They do transfer from us. It's not as consistent as some of our other partners, but they do transfer from us. They take both dogs and cats.
Okay, thanks.
This slide represents the dogs and cats that were euthanized last quarter. And kind of going over the outcome codes, we did change these slightly from the last meeting to be a little bit more succinct with NHS and the codes that we're going to be utilizing to determine whether or not an animal is behaviorally sound or not sound. And so I'm going to go over briefly what those outcome codes mean. The ADL testing is the Animal Disease Lab. So if an animal has to be tested for rabies, that's what that one will be for. Behavior consists of aggression. It can be aggression towards animals or people. Medical consists of quite a number of things. It could be an injury that resulted in a quality of life issue, or it could just be something as simple as the animal's at the end of their life, and their quality of life is not going to be good and not going to be a viable adoption candidate. An owner-requested euthanasia is pretty self-explanatory. We don't do that on a regular basis. That's something that if an animal came to us and is already sick or injured, and the owner has opted to allow us to euthanize the animal, that's oftentimes what falls under that category. And then the quality of life includes those animals that, for a variety of reasons, may not be adoption candidates. Maybe it's a health issue. It could be a behavior issue. It's not something that we've deemed able to be rehabilitated given our resources and our rescue community resources. And so the euthanasia recommendation has been made. And then, of course, the space. Fortunately, we haven't had to euthanize for space, and of course, our goal is to not have to euthanize for space, but that is something that you saw there last year. And we've been working really hard with our partners at the Humane Society and our other rescue groups to not have to do that in the future.
Yeah, I'm really relieved to see that zero in this quarter.
The other category that I skipped is the dangerous dog category. So if those animals that have gone through the administrative process and they've been declared dangerous, the owner is not able to or chooses not to comply with the dangerous dog code requirements to keep the animal, then it is euthanized. It is obviously not placed up for adoption.
But let me ask you one more question on this before we leave it.
Sure.
I'm a little concerned about this category called no rescue resources. So tell us about that a little bit.
The no rescue resources is something that we talked about in relation to, you have animals that come in to the facility that sometimes shut down. They aren't socially adaptable to change, to the kennel life. They are sometimes not socialized to being around humans. And it's not that they're aggressive. It's not that they're not able to live a life in a home. It's that the resources that would be required to support that animal through adoption are just not there. We have rescue partners that are full. We're struggling to get animals adopted that have minor behavior issues. So when you have one that has significant issues, those animals unfortunately sometimes have to be euthanized if we cannot find a rescue partner that has the resources to meet those needs.
And you still distinguish that, though, from behavior?
Yes, so behavior encompasses human and animal aggression. So we don't necessarily qualify an animal for no rescue resources for being aggressive towards humans. That is mostly for animals that they maybe aren't socialized towards multiple humans. Let's say the dog lived in a house with one person and that person passed away. The dog is not socialized to other people. It's going to take a tremendous amount of resources to get that animal to be adoptable and to live in an environment, in a kennel, until it can be adopted. It can include animals that are, we had an example of one 2 quarters ago that had such difficulty adjusting to even the short time in the kennel that we had it, that it was self-mutilating.
Oh.
And so it's situations like that where it's just a quality of life decision that this animal is not going to, it's going to live so long in a kennel before it even has a chance to be adopted. It's not humane.
Gotcha. Yeah, please go ahead.
Julie McMahon for the record. Can you hear me okay? In that situation, the longer they're in those kennels, the more they kind of spiral down into a situation where it becomes more and more intangible for them to bond or even become a part of society anymore. And that's where it kind of helps make the decision long-term.
Gotcha. Thank you.
So moving on to field services. So as a reminder, we have 18 total officers and supervisors that cover our entire county, 365 days a year from 8 a.m. to 10 p.m. And I think I talked a little bit last quarter about we had 2 vacancies. And so we've since filled those vacancies, but it's going to be a few more months before those officers are on their own and trained. So we are still sort of in the trenches, so to speak, of getting back up to speed. But the summertime is by far our busiest time of the year. And so we definitely see a higher call volume and struggle to meet the needs of the community during the summertime. So when those vacancies hit us during the summertime, it really hurts. So this is all of our field service calls that came in last quarter. So if you're looking at the 2025 quarter, from the bottom up in light blue, we have animal bite investigations. We have 380 noise complaints in the dark blue, the next one up, which is a slight decrease from the last 2 quarters. And then we have stray animal calls, which is always our lion's share of calls. And then unrestrained calls and welfare calls in gray for a grand total of 5,345 calls last quarter. So we're seeing a slight uptick in the number of field service calls over the same quarter the last 4 years, which again, it's the busiest time of year for us, so we do our very best to meet the needs of our community.
Yeah, absolutely, please.
If you could remind me the other, what falls under the other category in orange?
Certainly. The other calls encompasses assisting other agencies, setting traps, responding to, if someone flags down an officer and it's not a specific call, they're asking questions. It encompasses quite a lot of those random other types of calls.
Thank you.
But they're out in the field, it's not a call into you, is that right?
Right. It's a field call, so whether it comes in through dispatch or a citizen hail, it's a field service call.
Okay. Oh, I'm sorry. Trudy, go ahead, please.
Trudy Broussard, for the record, I just had a quick shout out for all these people in the field who are doing things, like assisting with that fire on. Was it 7th or Key, somewhere in that vicinity? I mean, that's just admirable.
Thank you. We are going to talk a little bit about our emergency response this last quarter because we were very busy. So this slide is representative of our animal welfare calls. And so if you're looking at the bottom up, 98 calls were unfounded. So as a reminder, if an officer goes out and sometimes a perception of a neglect call or a cruelty call is not founded, a dog in a backyard that has no food or water, and the officer gets there and finds the water bucket in the corner where the reporting party couldn't see it, that's an unfounded call. So 98 of those were unfounded. 545 reached other outcomes, so that could be that they resolved the issue through education, through working with them to connect them to resources, to helping them, fix a minor issue. And so those are the ones that we want to see continue to increase, and the punitive pieces decrease. So the last one is the cites and notice of civil penalties. So those are the punitive approaches that we have to take for those individuals who are particularly egregious violations and or they have not rectified the situation. They will get a citation or an NCP, but a total of 726 calls last quarter for welfare. Okay. Keeping in mind that the hot car calls do fall into this category as well. So this is a new feature that we're working on, still working on refining it. It is, we still have some work to do to display this information in a meaningful way. So this chart actually is a zoomed out heat map, but it does include all of the commission districts. And then on the column on the right, it has the breakdown of the zip codes and where the most calls come from. And so my hope is that we add another layer to this map and we can show the types of calls. So the top 5 calls, so that the commissioners can see what is the nature of the calls that are in my district and what are the issues. So, but this is a work in progress, but I wanted to share it as it's something interesting that gives us an idea of some of those geographic areas and what could be particular issues related to those geographic areas.
Can you, just briefly, I assume more is the yellow and the red, but these areas of green, purple, and kind of tealish blue, what are they supposed to represent?
I believe that those are I don't have a ledger to coordinate the colors, but I do believe that the red is the higher calls, but I don't know necessarily what the yellow means. So
Well,
again,
or even these other colors
Those
of
are
green.
districts.
those are the
Commission
districts. Yeah, so
Oh.
the shading, the purple, the gray, the light blue, those are the districts.
Brown is Commissioner Herman, green is.
I got you.
Yeah.
So those are the districts, and then within the districts, we have the calls.
Yes.
Okay.
So again, like I said, we have to figure out how can we zoom in and display the information without, making the image too large and going off the slide. So we've
Okay.
got to play with it some more.
All right. Well, I'm glad you're doing it. It's usually good data.
So I mentioned that we were busy last quarter with fires. We responded to 4 different fires in our region, and we housed multiple animals during those fires. We had a total of 135 animals sheltered. It looks like my 5 dropped off there. But that was a collective of all 4 of the fires. The Davis fire, of course, being the longest and most labor-intensive fire of the season thus far. We operate 2 separate shelters if we have livestock and small animals, and so that is another increasingly difficult workload to keep up with, as well as we have our field teams helping to evacuate. So when you think about the tiers of staffing that we provide to emergencies, it's pretty complex. We have a small animal shelter set up usually where the Red Cross is, and then the large animal shelter is dependent on where there is space available, Livestock Event Center, UNR, various places where we can house large animals. So they can be very complex and difficult to staff. We started collectively counting the staff hours that we put in on these fires this summer, and we have approximately 922 staff hours that were committed to the 4 fires. So when you think about, 47 employees is what I have. Not every one of those is a field employee or a kennel employee. So some of those are admin folks that don't go out in the field and handle animals. It's increasingly challenging for us to keep up with the needs of these longer-term fires. And so we are working on an agreement to have the Humane Society of the United States come and help us in times of disasters where they're larger scale disasters, longer term disasters, with boots on the ground volunteers that come and help take care of the shelter so that our staff can still run our normal operation on Longley, because we're also trying to do that at the same time. So it can become very difficult. But I thought it would be something worthwhile to share during the times of year when we are active in our emergency response, to share some of the efforts being provided by our staff.
A question on this slide. Previously, I got a chance to tour your new emergency vehicles that are sited at the various shelters. How are they working out?
They are wonderful. My team was very skeptical about these 2 trailers that we were able to get from the Department of Homeland Security last year, because they are small and cramped inside, but they are enclosed, and they have water and air conditioning and lighting, but their cages are built in. And so when we get called out to a fire, we just hook up and go. It's not, let's load up and let's go unpack all the crates and let's set up in a gymnasium somewhere, which takes hours to do. We're much more flexible and able to pivot much easier with these trailers. They're not meant for long-term housing, and so that's the other dilemma that we faced with the Davis fire, is that we had multiple days where animals were in these small cages in the trailers. And so we're working internally on protocols for if a fire goes on for more than 48 hours, we need to relocate those animals back to the shelter if the humans aren't staying in the Red Cross shelter, which is most of the time the humans are staying somewhere else and they just need somewhere for their animals to go. And so in that case, those animals can be better cared for at the shelter.
Gotcha. That seems like a good protocol, though. I mean, keep them close by for the little bit, but transfer.
Yes.
Yeah.
And a good majority of our fires, thankfully, are, a few hours. We evacuate, and then, they're able to get a handle on the fire and people can go home. And so for that scenario, the trailers are perfect. Being able to house them, 12 hours or 8 hours is perfect. But when you start getting into those days on end, it's very difficult to provide the adequate care for the animals.
And then quick question about the National Humane Society. I assume those volunteers come from all over the country. Is there a program, or do they recruit locally so that local people could also say, whoa, I guess I need to put on my hat and get out there and help?
Cheyenne Shell, for the record. I do believe that they do. We are in the agreement phase at this point in time, so we're attempting to learn the details and to move this agreement forward. They are deployed to the hurricane areas at the current time, and so we are on pause with them with regards to the agreement, but I do anticipate us spelling out all of those opportunities so that our community can get involved if they so choose.
Okay,
Thank you.
great. Yeah, please.
I just wanted to say, too, that on the local level, it isn't difficult to get involved. Washoe County had a lot of social media requests for support at large animal facility, at the equestrian center. So it was as much as just responding to a quick email or a social media post and getting there. So in my case, I spent time at the shelter while their team was out. I had students who came to the equestrian center to help just muck out stalls. And so it doesn't have to be that complex if we're interested in helping. You just got to put your hand up oftentimes, so.
And thank you for your assistance. So we're moving on to outreach and talking about all of the great things we're doing out in the community in addition to our field and sheltering services. I think I mentioned last quarter that we are pulling back a little bit in our outreach services because we have a vacancy on my team of 2. So that means I have one person running the entire outreach show. She's getting ready to go out on maternity leave in a couple of weeks. So I don't anticipate us getting back to full-scale outreach until February of 2025. However, we are still pushing through on the things that we are considering vitally important and trying to maintain those services and programs. The care support program referrals are down as anticipated because we just simply don't have the staff to be able to review the referrals. And so the decrease from 134 last year to 78 this year is not a surprise. Pet food for seniors is a program that we consider vitally important and we are striving to keep in place. And there's a tremendous amount of work that goes into that program. So if I have any volunteers who are interested to come in and help rebag pet food, that's something that takes a tremendous amount of time for my team to do, to take all those large bags of pet food and rebag them into smaller sizes so that the seniors can carry those. We do that every month, the third Tuesday, from 8:30 a.m. until supplies run out. Usually takes about an hour. So, but 239 seniors were served through that program last quarter. 581 pets were served. And then vaccines is another program that we consider vitally important as a prevention to our community pets to prevent disease. We are still doing our monthly vaccine clinic, but we're also doing joint clinics like we did one with the SPCA a couple weeks ago. It was a very large free vaccine clinic. We participated in that event with them and microchipped well over 400 pets during that event. So we do consider that a very important program to be continuing within our community, but we vaccinated 684 pets, or 684 vaccines given to 340 pets. So that vaccine clinic happens the first Wednesday of the month from 3 to 7 at our office. And then a little deeper dive into the outreach events and the things that happened last quarter. We had 3 vaccine clinics, again with the totals of animals vaccinated and 111 microchips implanted in our monthly vaccine clinics. And then the other events that you see there are the one I just mentioned, the SPCA drive-through clinic we participated in. And then we also participated in the kids' career camp at the SPCA, where we send an officer who goes and talks to the kids about what it's like to be an animal control officer and shows them all of our equipment and our vehicles. And we also participated in Art Pause, and I understand that our booth was one of the most popular. We gave away 148 personal ID tags. We have a personal ID tag making machine that we will provide to pet owners in our community who wish to put one on their dog or cat to help them get reunited more quickly. And then again, last but not least, the pet food distribution events, again summarized there.
And then Cheyenne, on the Art Pause, first of all, I know there was a time, once upon a time, years ago, you didn't participate, and I'm so glad that you do now, because like you just said, you're one of the most popular booths. And at that Art Pause, do you do the microchipping there too? Or-
If we have the staff, we will, yes. We will, if we have the right staff that are certified to be able to microchip, we will absolutely try to provide that service as well. I don't know if we did at this last
Yeah,
event.
I don't know.
But it's one of the options that we try to provide as many places as we can. We do it, again, as a reminder, anytime during business hours, no appointment needed. Bring your pet, if you're a Washoe County resident, to our office and we'll microchip it for free. The other thing I wanted to mention that is part of our outreach program is I mentioned that we did have a vacancy. We did hire someone. She's on week number 2, program assistant, and she's going to be working on the volunteer program and overhauling our volunteer program and structuring the training and the onboarding. And so we're excited about that. We're excited about the opportunities to cast a wider net with all of the things we do with volunteer help. And it's something we haven't been able to heavily focus on and get any traction on in the past. So I'm excited about that and providing assistance to our outreach programs.
Could this help with your 2 vacancies as well? I don't know. I know that's kind of specialized, the area of social media, right?
Yes.
You said you're down 1, and the other 1 is also ready to go out on maternity leave, so you'll be at 0.
So the one that we just hired is the program assistant. She's filling the vacancy that we had. So unfortunately, her training won't be at a spot where she'll be fully onboarded before my other one goes out on maternity leave. So we'll get her as much as we can pointed in the right direction and until February 2025.
Okay.
And then we'll hopefully gain a lot of steam next year. This is also another new slide that I included, and I hope that this number of hours exponentially increases for all the reasons I just talked about with regards to our volunteer program. But we really had a great showing of volunteers with our emergencies, our fires, but we also have volunteers that show up for every vaccine clinic. And they show up to help us in any capacity that they can. And it's sometimes chaotic and it's busy and you're on your feet for all those hours. And so we definitely appreciate our volunteers and everything that they help us, do with all of the resources and the things that we're limited on when we're short-staffed or when we're responding to an emergency. So I felt that it was something we should integrate into this presentation. I would be remiss if I did not mention that October 16th, this week, was National or Global Cat Day or Feral Cat Day, synonymous of one another. I think we did a proclamation, the city of Reno did a proclamation last year. This year, what we decided to do is to recognize some of the efforts that are being made in our community to help support cats, not just feral cats, but all the cats that we care for in our shelter system, all the spay and neuter efforts that are happening. It is definitely a day to recognize and to support the global movement to protect and improve the lives of cats. And part of the movement is to challenge the attitude towards cats and help reform policies that support life-saving and helping implement systemic change in shelters to end the senseless euthanasia of cats. And so I know that we've talked about TNR and we've talked about community cats with this board, and it's one of the things that Animal Services supports wholeheartedly in our community, and we want to recognize all of the collective efforts that groups are doing in our community to support cats, us included. And so we are happy to share some statistics that I was able to collect from some of our partnering groups as well as some of our stats. Animal Services has provided shelter and care for 2,592 cats so far this year, 2,161 of which were transferred to rescue partners, including NHS, SPCA, and Options Veterinary Care, as well as other adoption partners. 280 of those cats were reclaimed by their owners for an overall live release rate of 95% for cats. There are not a lot of shelters in the country that can say that today. So we are pretty proud to be able to have the partnerships that we do to help these cats find live release options, and all of the partners that are doing the heavy lifting and getting cats spayed and neutered in our community so they're not reproducing and producing more cats that don't have homes. And additionally, the community efforts that support trap, neuter, and return programs, as I mentioned, Options Veterinary Care and the SPCA have partnered on providing trap, neuter, and release services for our community. And to date, from January to September, they have spayed and neutered 1,264 cats for their TNR program. And Nevada Humane Society has provided over 700 spay and neuter surgeries specifically for TNR, but additionally, they provided a tremendous amount of support to Animal Services in that they took in over 1,000 kittens that were too young to thrive on their own. And so in a traditional shelter system, those cats would have come into the shelter and they would have been euthanized because they can't survive on their own. And so being able to go to the Nevada Humane Society and be put into foster care and to be able to be brought back when they're old enough to be spayed and neutered and then placed up for adoption is a tremendous help to us. And so that was a definite service to be commended. And then Community Cats assisted 521 cats in our community. That includes spay and neuter, trapping, transporting, releasing, and community education. So it is definitely a worthwhile venture to celebrate all the efforts to protect cats, to help cats in our community, to spay and neuter, prevent unwanted birth, to prevent disease, and to support all of the goodwill in the community that people desire to help cats, but they just don't know where to go and how to reach out for services. And so I thought it was something that we could celebrate. So we have been sharing on our social media page this week all messaging geared towards cats in addition to our lost and found, just trying to help our community understand, what is an ear-tipped cat, what does it mean to TNR, and what are the resources that are available. And so that's our way to tribute to the Global Cat Day of 2024, and hopefully you will also appreciate all those efforts that are going into all the cats in our community.
Cheyenne, let me ask you on that note. Is there any, I don't know that there is, but is there any estimate of the number of feral cats? Like, when we say in our community, I mean, we have the Reno Sparks sort of metropolitan area, but then when you're covering the whole county. So do you have any statistics or estimates?
I do not have an estimate off the top of my head for how many cats there could possibly be in our community. There are standard calculations for how many dogs and cats live in a community based on population size.
Oh.
And that's something that I can bring back to the
That'd be
board
interesting.
an estimate, but with regards to feral cats, I don't know how accurate that is.
Right. I didn't know if maybe the community cats or one of those that deal with them might have an estimate. No?
Possibly.
Okay.
I can certainly reach out.
Well, I know that some nonprofits that deal with other feral animals do have population estimates, and that they work with, and that they can actually calculate how spay neuter is working in those populations and how much it's reducing births and those kind of things. But there's probably so many that I don't know if they have any handle on it.
I think that those programs where they're really honed in on focusing on an area that has a specific problem, like using heat mapping and data like that.
Right.
Where are the animals coming in from? Where are your neonate kittens coming in from? That targeted resource programming is very concise and actually the most accurate at mitigating unwanted births versus throwing spay neuter out to the whole community and not focusing on specific areas. But there definitely are programs out there that do refine their programs to that degree of study. So
It sounds really interesting. I mean, it might be a way of prioritizing this, you said, instead of just providing wherever, whenever. Not that you wouldn't as we expand spay neuter, but prioritizing in areas where we're seeing these population growths.
yes,
Might be good.
I think the biggest challenge for our grassroots groups is they're just struggling to keep up with the need for providing the services as the calls come in for help. I don't know that there's necessarily a targeted effort. So if we had more resources and availability of the spay neuter programs and trap and neuter and release programs, I think it would definitely be helpful and would enable us to focus more on the areas of need based on intake and where the calls are coming
I mean,
from.
it's certainly more humane than killing animals. And
Yes.
you made the point that, if you're overrun with animals, that would be the result. But,
Yes.
okay, she's ended her report, so any comments, questions more globally or on a specific topic? Commissioner, okay, I'm going to go here with Commissioner Garcia.
Thank you, Madam Chair. You had talked about animal evacuations, and I was just looking at the video that you posted, and it said that our field officers work to remove animals from properties during the Davis fire. I had a constituent that wasn't impacted by the Davis fire, but she's in a rural setting in Sun Valley, and she's elderly, and her circumstances have changed in terms of her mobility and ability to hook up a trailer, and I don't know if she has somebody in the home that could help her or assist, so she got to asking and kind of wondering, so I just wanted to pose that question to you. For constituents that are concerned about evacuation orders that come down pretty quickly, what would be the best way? Is it 311 to contact 311 directly to ask for help, or what resources are available for folks like that?
In the midst of the emergency, it's best to call us directly, and we do keep our dispatchers on staff as long as the emergency is ongoing so that we can funnel those calls. They can also contact 911 if it's that dire of a need, but they can contact us directly, and we'll work with our incident command staff to to dispatch our officers out to those locations.
right. Other comments, questions? Ms. McMahon?
Julie McMahon for the record. I was curious about the microchipping. You had said that roughly 48% of the dogs and 12% of the cats. Of the ones that are microchipped, how many of them are actually successfully registered and you're contacting people? Because I feel like there are several that are, for instance, still registered to the Humane Society or whoever implanted them, or they're just not current. Do you have any ideas of what that looks like?
I don't have that data with me, but we definitely do have a lot of dead-end microchips that people don't keep the information up to date. And that's another area of, working on awareness within our community about the importance of keeping that information up to date, phone numbers accurate. If you move, update your information, even if you don't do it through the national registry, because we keep our own local information. And so if the animal lives within Washoe County and gets scanned, we will have that information regardless if the national registry information is not kept up to date.
So is that where they need to do, is if they move or change phone numbers, they need to call you?
Yes.
I mean, your office? Okay.
Yes.
And are you connected to national registries, or is that a completely separate database?
It's a separate database, but when we microchip an animal, it gets automatically registered to the national database.
Okay.
So it's updated for them the first time, but if they move, that,
So
there
it's
may
on
be a
them.
charge the second time. So they have to, that's on them to have to keep up with that.
You said there's a charge?
There can be a charge depending on the microchip company. There's a lot of different microchip companies out there with different policies. But we give them the first time registration, so they don't have to do anything.
Okay.
And then one last question. I think comparing last quarter's information, you have 6 staff members and then 2 additional leadership positions on your staff right now. Are you down people then? Because I feel like last quarter you had at least 7 staff members.
If you include our medical staff as part of the kennel caretaking staff, you'll increase that number by 3 because we
Okay.
have a veterinarian, a vet technician, and a vet assistant. But those staff members don't clean kennels. They're not necessarily out, taking care of the animals on the day-to-day feeding and watering. And so they are definitely part of the animal care staff, but they're not the direct boots on the ground folks for day-to-day animal care. We do have a position that we requested for this fiscal year for another animal service assistant that will add to the intake, the back intake office, so that will help alleviate our medical staff so that we can do, medical care and surgery if necessary. So that position is going to be critical to helping get us over the hump and, being much more efficient with our medical staff time.
And just on that note, I just wanted to, you didn't have anything in the report about Dr. Slayton and the team, but I have heard a lot of community feedback, and I work with several students who are employees at NHS on the clinic side, and they have remarked how wonderful it has been to have certain things transferred, already taken care of without all of the burden that they've had before. So I just want to say yay to your team.
Great, thank you.
Yeah.
We are very excited to have medical staff on staff full-time. It's very helpful to us. We're in the process of working through training, onboarding the vet assistant, and putting together all the protocols. We never had a medical program before, so she's been busy helping us get all the protocols and training in place and developing short videos for our staff about disease recognition and things like that. So it's been a great addition having her and her team on staff since March of this year.
So did I hear you right to say that you're being able to take care of some medical issues before transferring to Nevada Humane?
Yes.
So that's then relieving them a little bit.
Yes, so many of those conditions that are recognized are, disease recognition. If there's an animal that's unfortunately quality of life euthanasia, previously we didn't have any way to run diagnostics or to be able to screen those animals, and so they went to the Humane Society, and many times the Humane Society had to ultimately euthanize the animal. And so for us to be able to take care of our own animals and not, wait for them to go off of stray hold and move over to the Humane Society to be euthanized or treated is definitely a major core purpose of having our own veterinarian, is to take care of our in-house animals.
All right, perfect. Any other questions or comments? All right, seeing none, thank you so much, Director Schul. Really appreciate those updates. This is what keeps us in touch with what's happening. All right, we will close out that item, and I move to item 7, which is Nevada Humane Society Operational Update Report. And I think we have Jerlene Bryant, the CEO, and Trent Bingham, the Director of Operations, with us.
Good afternoon, Chair Dewar and advisory board members. For the record, my name is Jerlene Bryant, and I'm the CEO at the Nevada Humane Society. With me here today is Trent Bingham. He is our Director of Operations at NHS. Thank you once again for inviting us here today to provide a brief overview of the work that NHS has done in our community over the past third quarter of the calendar year. The weather is cooling down, and with that comes a slight decrease in animals coming through our doors and a bit of relief for our staff. Thank goodness. I stand before you today representing an organization that is much different than it was in years past. I'm proud to have a team of dedicated animal welfare professionals who understand the needs of our community and the animals in our care. They strive every day to meet these demands using best practices in our industry, including the coveted ASV guidelines. These guidelines help us maintain a high standard of performance, ensuring consistency in decision-making and actions. As for updates, as the slide indicates, I think the most significant one I would like to share is the implementation of our Behavior and Transfer Department. Dr. Shelley Volch joined our team, our NHS team, in August to lead this program. She has just recently fulfilled the hiring requirements and has added 3 behavior and transfer coordinators to her team. Our mission is to care for pets, find them homes, and save lives. The Behavior and Transfer Department supports this mission by assessing and supporting the well-being of animals in our care. The Behavior Department also plays a crucial role in educating staff, volunteers, and the community. This involves animal behavior, proper handling techniques, and humane training methods. We're all very excited to have this program finally come to fruition, and I look forward to sharing updates with all of you in the future about the positive impact this department is sure to have on the animals in our care and the people who care for them. And now I'm going to turn it over to Trent, who will share some exciting data from this last quarter.
Thank you, Jerlene. Hello, Trent Bingham for the record. It is always a pleasure to be here, and always a pleasure to deal with the exciting land of data. It does excite me, and I think it is very meaningful and very helpful for keeping up to date with how our community is doing. Quick note, the data that we're going to be sharing, we are on a calendar year basis, and so we're going to be referring to the last quarter as Q3. We do mirror the same where we will be showing the data by comparison to Q3 in the previous years as well. A great place to start is our capacity. We have a certain number of kennels. We have 142 kennels in our Reno facility that are available for use. We monitor that very carefully. It allows us to know how many owner guardian surrenders we can have. It is a constraint on how many we can transfer over, and it is an area that we very much look at to maximize our life saving in the community.
Could you explain this graph a little? I mean,
Sure.
There may be numbers, but on the vertical axis, and we can't read the ones on the bottom. So if you could just say what the range is.
Can
and
do.
Okay.
So we go up from 0 to 142
On the bottom?
On the left, on the y-axis.
The x-axis?
So
Going vertical?
yes.
Okay.
0 to 142, that's our number of kennels that we have. Across the horizontal axis, we are just looking at dates. So that's just from July.
But I mean, what are the dates?
So,
From
Trent, what
when?
you see is not what we see. So just so you know how you can see that very clearly. On our side, it doesn't. You can't see any numbers on the left. Just FYI.
It's just offset. So
Well, that's really fun.
no, it's okay. But just what are the number on the bottom? It starts at
It's just dates.
July 24 to. Is this a day?
July 1st, 2024 to September 29th, 2024.
Every 2 days is
So
a tick.
it is the whole quarter for Q3, from July, August, and September.
And every tick is every 2 days? Mm-hmm. Okay. So this is 90 days, roughly?
Roughly, yeah. 3 months.
Okay.
Okay.
So what are we seeing here? What is this telling us?
What this is telling us is the blue at the bottom, that is the reserve kennels. That's the spaces that we reserve for emergency surrenders and other usage that we need to keep available at all times. The orange that you're seeing is the occupied. So that's our occupancy percentage that you're looking at there. And then the available is the gray. That is, in a perfect world, we would always be below our capacity for care. That is how many kennels we would be able to fill without having to go over our capacity for care. And then the yellow is our emergency. That's really the remaining kennels, the ones that we really don't want to fill unless we have to. As you can see, in the beginning of July, we were above our capacity for care. The previous quarter to that, the month of June, we were consistently above 80% capacity almost every single day of the month, and it continued over to the beginning of July. It was related to really what we were seeing is we had high intakes, we didn't have that many adoptions, and we had longer lengths of stay. It was probably seeing that we were having difficulty placing some of our animals in our care. But even through that period, we were still maintaining a strong level of owner-guardian surrender. Demand is high, continues to be high, and also our transfers from Washoe County Regional Animal Services.
Trent, Dias Dixon here for the record. Is the capacity of care based on your staffing ratios? Is that what it is, or is there a combination of capacity, how many kennels you have, and how many staff you have on board? Does that capacity for care move and shift at different seasons?
Our capacity for care does not move and shift with our staffing levels. It was calculated with understanding where our staffing levels should roughly be, but we don't dynamically adjust that for if, say, everybody in dog team got COVID at once. We wouldn't want to drop our capacity for care. We basically dig in, do more volunteer work, do more to be as efficient as we possibly can and stay within that. And it generally works out. We also have 2 campuses, so we are able to adjust labor to make sure that we continue to do that. That 80% capacity is really one that takes in those various different flavors, looks at our clinic capacity and their ability to provide their care, and ensure that if we go above that, we start getting a little crunchy in our ability to provide the extra bit of care that we would be loving to do for the animals, but we also are able to below that and give more.
Okay. So it looks like you reserve about 35 kennels in emergency. Is that what it is? Did I read that right? Or maybe it's 25.
It's 114 kennels is at about that 80% mark, and then 142 is the total number.
So like 25 you reserve? Okay.
And that's pretty easy. It can be pretty easy to fill. And actually the spike that you see that happened in the middle of September, that is the Davis fire. We were positioned well to be able to provide assistance to CRCCS, Canine Rehabilitation Center. They had fires that were literally on their doorstep. They gave us a call and we said, bring them here, we'll figure it out. We figured it out and reached the highest capacity I've ever seen, which is about 96% of our kennels were full during that period. They provided extra staff that were able to provide the care for those animals, so it was a lift that we could do, and that's exactly why we leave that emergency level in there, is to be able to support our community in times of crisis.
Yeah, Trudy.
I was just wondering how many animals that actually represents. It's kind of hard to read the bars here.
Sure. This is a count of occupancy of kennels. For the most part, it's 1-to-1. There are times, for instance, litters of puppies where there'll be multiples in them. Occasionally, a few small dogs will go in one kennel together if they came in together, and we know that they do well together. But
So this represents basically how many animals are at that facility, at the campus down in Washoe Valley?
it represents dogs, and it's the number of filled dog kennels. Most of the kennels is a 1-to-1 ratio of being able to say,
I guess I'm trying to ask is that everybody? They get all the dogs out?
oh, out of CRCCS? Yes.
Yes.
Yes, they got everybody out. We got them all in, and they also had some of their boarding clients who were there, and we were also able to get them for a day or two while it took all of the owners of those to come forth and to be able to get them back.
Oh, thank you.
for the number of dogs at CRCCS. It was about, they double up more, and they work to be as contained as they could be. And so they had about 48 kennels, and they had, it fluctuated throughout the day as they were coming in. So it was a little over that in the number of dogs that they had.
All right, thank you.
You know, just for next time, you might want to try a different slide format. Just maybe might be a little easier to read. Just,
Sure,
I'm
especially
picking up.
knowing that screen.
Yeah.
Cropping off the edges.
Okay.
Okay, intakes. Our Reno campus, we receive animals from 5 primary different sources. The largest chunk is from transfers from Washoe County Regional Animal Services. We share a building. They come down the hallway. That's a core feature of our behavior and transfer department to be keeping that flow as expedient as possible. The other major chunk is owner-guardian surrenders. We are contracted to be the owner-guardian surrender facility for all of Washoe County. And then the other another chunk is our Good Samaritan strays. These are the ones that Cheyenne was mentioning earlier. They are under 8 weeks of age, under 2 pounds. They would not thrive on their own, and they go straight into our foster program until they get to the age that they would be. They are generally community cats. They are ones who would probably grow up, be feral cats in the community, reproduce, and contribute to the cat overpopulation out and about. So it's a big service that we do, and it's a large chunk of the cats that we bring into our care. The other chunk we have is returns, and then I have another category because you can never have enough categories, so other is a good way to throw them in there. And that includes boarding care, some internal transfers from our Carson campus, transfers from other partners, direct TNR, and a few other sources. This is the quick breakdown for Q3. So for our last quarter, you can see that 60% of the animals for dogs came from Washoe County Regional Animal Services, 29% came from owner-guardian surrenders. The stray Good Samaritans for dogs there's very rarely that you find puppies just kind of out and about on their own. That's not a standard method by which they come in. They do occasionally come in, but not very often. And then returns are about 7% of our intake, and then the small slice of other. For cats, it's a very different story. For cats, 51% came from Washoe County Regional Animal Services, 15% came from owner-guardian surrender, and that's the 26% of the Good Samaritans. Q3 and Q2, those are very busy kitten season quarters. That is when people are it feels like it's raining kittens out in the community, and they're finding them everywhere, and we're happy to be able to provide this service, bring them in, get them spayed, neutered, microchips, and get them into their forever homes. Looking at that data and then comparing it to previous Q3s in the years, you can see some fairly large differences in that mix of intake that we have. You can see overall that our intake for dogs is up. It is up, it's on the second page. It is up 8% from the 2023 numbers, and owner-guardian surrender continues to be a strong demand. Starting last year, in 2023, that is when we as an organization really looked at our owner-guardian surrender program and made sure to do the adjustments necessary to meet that community demand. Previously, there were a few too many barriers up. It was an onerous process, and it was not built in a way to make it as efficient as possible. Recognizing that it's better for the community to be able to have a safe place for their animals, we invested in that. We changed staffing. We changed all of our policies. And you could see in 2023 that massive change in the percentage of where our animals were coming in from, and it has continued. We do know from our animal help desk, where people call to do surrenders, that it is a constant need for our community, and it does seem to be growing.
Yeah, please.
Julie McMahon for the record. I just wanted to ask and see, I love that, like, comparatively, like where you guys were a year ago, like you're up significantly. And like on Cheyenne's slides, she said that about 88% of the animals are going to you. And if you compare over years past, they were up mid-90s prior. Do you have any insight on, is that going to continue to kind of edge up, do you think? Or are there dependent factors such as owner surrenders and things like that that may inhibit you from reaching that level of, with your partnership that you had before?
Of course. Predicting the future, of course, is a difficult thing to do. We obviously saw the difference between Q3 of last year compared to Q3 of this year in that same chart. We really have been investing in trying to maximize the number of animals that come in. However, we do also have to be cognizant of the kind of animals that do well in a sheltering environment. That was not always a focus in the previous years and previous leadership. Animals that would do better in a non-shelter environment such as foster or the shutdown animals that Cheyenne was referring to earlier. It doesn't do the animal a lot of good to bring over to sit and wait in a kennel for somebody who may never come in for their care. Additionally, we've worked with Washoe County Regional Animal Services to be more invested in identifying dangerous animals before they get transferred. And those shouldn't enter the full number, but it is certainly a part of it.
Okay.
I suppose that's a way of...
That helps, yeah, definitely understand. And I do want to kind of ask a little bit about the behavioral assessment and transfers, because as you probably know, like we are, at the TMCC Vet Tech students come in weekly in and work with a lot of the animals that are in there. Many of them are ones that your team may say that are not necessarily fit the criteria for transfer, maybe because of their FAS score. But then you get them out of that situation. Maybe, for instance, we take them in the clinic and work with them on an individual basis. You see a whole nother dog. And I feel like that sometimes maybe those animals are being profiled on a snapshot. What is your procedure for reassessment? So say there's a little one that earlier in the week you guys decided not appropriate at this time. You come back, do you look at that animal again, or is it a one and done?
Sure. It is never just a one and done. First off, the first level of assessment that we do is a multi-stage assessment. If we do see high kennel FAS, if it's a shutdown animal and we're able to get in the kennel and work with them, we'll work with them and give them the opportunity to see where they're at. Are they affiliated with people? Will they take a treat in that environment? If we can, leash them, bring them out to get an assessment further and see if they're good characteristics for us. Ones where you see a little bit more of us passing on them are ones where they show not just a high FAS, but high on the aggression scale, where they maybe have barrier aggression or they're showing a lack of affiliation with people, combined with snarling, barking, lunging, behaviors such as that preclude the choosing to try them out on a leash and see where we can get them. We are recognizing that shelters are very stressful environments. Their FAS that they are showing at Washoe County Regional Animal Services when they've been there for a few days is not where they would necessarily be out and about in the community. So we gather our information from all the sources we can. We get wonderful behavior notes now from the team at Washoe County Regional Animal Services. And if we see that there is amelioration in their behavior, more affiliation, if we see that they would be a better candidate for our adoption program, then we are always making sure that we're willing to check in. One of the other elements that we'll do is if we see that there are animals who are later in their stay at Washoe County Regional Animal Services, we know that they're going to be being progressed towards that category of no interest from rescues. Those are ones that we will take another look at. It's also worth noting part of the process of doing our evaluations of animals means that we are over there multiple times a day and it gives us lots of snapshots where we'll see them over time and see if they are going to be more affiliative. It is also worth noting that many of those animals who are showing high FAS in kennel, they will also show high FAS in the kennel in our environment, and that may be ones where it's better for them to go to a place like Rescue, for instance, who does a lot of great work in this community with animals like that, who just really don't want to be in a kennel.
So FAS for the rest of us.
Sure. FAS is fear, anxiety, and stress. It is a method of measuring how elevated they are in the kennel. What is their feelings for it? If you were to kind of make it analogous to a human, if you walk into a classroom and you see a bunch of kids jumping around, screaming, throwing things, you would basically say that's a very high level of fear, anxiety, and stress going on in that room. And we use it to really measure the emotional well-being of animals in kennels.
Trent, Diaz Dixon for the record. Quick question. A lot of shelters make the mistake of measuring FAS while a dog is in a kennel. Do you guys pull the dog out into a neutral environment before you do your evaluation on that?
So there are, FAS is kind of a measurement that you would use in multiple times. We do want to know what their FAS is in kennel because that's where they're going to be spending the primary part of their time. So we do want to note and track that over time. We also take them out for other times of assessment. When we're saying, hey, how are you doing right now? We make sure that we keep tracks with our volunteers when they are taking dogs out and about and saying, how's it going? And keeping track of them in those regards as well. So it's not it's not like there's an official FAS that says, oh, in a kennel you're really stressed, therefore that is your FAS that we expect it to be everywhere.
Gotcha.
It is always a snapshot moment in a animal's behavior.
I just wanted to say that out loud because there are a large majority of shelters across the country that do not pull the dog out of the kennel, and it is a common mistake. And it's not even new, it's an evidence-based practice to make sure you do not do the evaluation behind a kennel. A dog inside a kennel is a very different dog, oftentimes outside in open space. Just throwing that out there.
Just anecdotally, I mean, even animals that are not in shelters but just in homes. I had an experience today where a constituent called me, and in the background, I heard an animal whining and crying in a kennel. And I said, is there something going on there? Is this animal okay? I mean, it wasn't the subject of the conversation. And they said, yeah, I just put the animal in the kennel because I didn't want it all over my lap while I was talking to you. But it was very clear to me this animal is not happy to be in a kennel, even in a house. And, I wanted them, I was having a hard time focusing on the conversation with this dog that seemed in stress. And so, anyway, it just, I think I don't have either of my dogs are not kennel trained. They have the whole run of the house, and we don't have kennels for any reason, sleeping or even transporting. We use other methods. But, other than when I've had cats, for example, I've had, cages, kennels to transport. But they're really big dogs, right? So they're 100 pounds. And, I'm sure if you took one of my dogs who has never been in a kennel, although I rescued one that had spent half her life in a kennel, the whole life. So she has a very different life now for the last 6 years, but I don't think they do very well at all. They're not used to it at all. So it could be some of that too. Just let's say they were rescued, but their person didn't retrieve them out of animal services, and now they're with you, and they've never been in that situation. They just spent 5 days in a kennel. And animal services, I'm sure they're growing restive and not enjoying it very much. So lots of reason, but they could be great animals, right? Dogs or cats. They're just not used to that environment whatsoever. I know a lot of people kennel train their dogs and cats in their house. It's where they sleep. That's their comfort zone and all that. It's a different environment. They're probably finer or more fine. So anyway, enough about all that. But any other, yes, Jill.
Jill Fisher for the record. I have one more question on this slide before we move on. I notice a huge difference in owner-guardian surrenders over this quarter in 2022, and that showed up in 2023. Is that indicative of something in the community, or is that an artifact from you removing so many barriers to owner surrender?
I haven't done the analysis, and I don't have access to all of the community indicators that would go into it. I think it's a little bit of column A and a little bit of column B. We do know that the community is struggling out there. We do know that our pet pantry numbers are very large, which is a sign of economic anxiety among pet owners. So we know that that's part of it. But I think it is, for this big of a spike, mostly related to how we changed our process to make it so that people were less inclined to, say, find a stray and bring it into the stray facility and say, I have no idea who this animal is. I think it is probably also related to some of the housing challenges we hear about, especially in terms of housing facilities that have weight limits or breed limits or very onerous fees related to that, where people are kind of settling in a growing Reno, which has many benefits, but some of the downsides is that I think that there isn't quite as many pet-friendly housing units as there would be.
Okay, anyone else so far? I know we've interrupted you, but you know, you have important slides here, so.
Oh, well, thank you. I always like talking about this. All right. And this is just the actual chart data, which is a nice way of looking at it. I also like the spark lines on the right as a way of kind of getting a quick hasty glance at how the data is doing. It's the same story we saw before. Again, as is pointed out, that big change in owner guardian surrender is a very massive change. For cats, we have a 1% reduction in our total number of cat intakes. It is there was a reduction in cat intakes at Washoe County as well. So it seems that some of our efforts are coming together and helping. There seems to be fewer of the Good Samaritan. Well, the Good Samaritan's a big chunk there. There seems to be fewer of the coming from the community cats that are coming through our doors and through Washoe County's doors. We are seeing, both anecdotally and in our numbers, the owner guardian surrenders. They're only up 2% here, but there's been a very hard to quantify difference that our team has noticed over the last few quarters, where it seems that there are more people who are giving up cats that wouldn't normally before. They're great cats. There's not any particular issues that we can immediately see. A lot of them are saying it's because of housing, and there seems to be a larger demand than we've had to deal with for owner guardian adult cats. This slide is just another breakdown of actually just showing the numbers, usually my favorite way of looking at data. And then outcomes. Really, if you boil down animal sheltering, it's intakes and outcomes. Everything else is the mechanisms that we try to work those numbers. Our primary purpose is to provide that expedient outcome for animals in our care. To borrow from our mission, this is the Find Them Homes part of our operations. For Nevada Humane Society, they primarily leave our care through adoptions, returns, and transfers. Adoptions are consistently the primary way that the animals leave our care, and adopter demand drives our capacity and our length of stay. So when we see our capacity fill up and our length of stay get longer, it is often related to a change in adopter demand, which is one of the things we have very little control over. This is a pie chart of our dog outcomes for Q3 of 2024. You can see that we have a live release rate of 92% here. The 8% wedge that is broken out here is the non-live outcomes. For dogs, that is often medical. With that increase of owner guardian surrenders that we are taking, it means that often we are getting ones that have pretty awful notes in home. We'll have ones that will come in that they'll have mauled several of their kids, that they will have multiple bites. They will be doing things like breaking through plate glass windows. In when we're looking at pathwaying them out, we always have to keep in mind of what can be changed and how much of a risk they are to our community at large. For cat outcomes, this one is a very different feel. This one, the non-live outcome that is worth talking about is really related to those neonatal kittens. Kittens who are separated from their mother, they can be in various different states of medical. Some of them are pretty fat and happy and take to a bottle very well. Others will come in and they're scrawny. They've been separated from their mother for some time, and they are struggling, and despite all of our best efforts, they may fail to thrive in our care. For our dog outcomes, here's comparing the previous years and looking at just the quarters. And you can see that we do have a pretty significant increase in the number of outcomes that we have in total for our dogs, which we celebrate and are very thankful for. One of the big increases is a 19% increase compared to Q3 last year for our adoptions. Again, just the raw numbers. And then for our...
Could you hold up just a minute?
Sure.
Paul Anderson for the record, and just wanted to get a clarification or an understanding. So what I'm noticing is the return to owner is, it looks to be 0 in this quarter. And previously it was, you could see that there were some.
Mm-hmm.
Is that just a change in the operation, or what would account for basically a 0?
So we are not the stray facility, so especially for dogs, we rarely will get a dog that is owned directly from the public and do a return to owner. Occasionally we will do one where somebody will do a surrender to us and then they'll change their mind a few days later. We still welcome those where it's appropriate for them to go back. Usually the conversation is one of kind of a meeting of minds and saying, so what changed? And we always celebrate when they can go back to a loving home. Some of it is a policy change in terms of in previous leadership and administrations, there was kind of a direct RTO pipeline that would happen from animals who were transferred over from Washoe County, and they were done for no fee. I think that was sometimes gamed a little, where people would say, hey, I don't want to pay the boarding fee next door, so I'll wait out the 5 days. And so that led to them having a higher length of stay. And now what we'll do is we'll say, well, they legally transferred over to ours, and you're welcome to adopt them. And so they get processed as an adoption.
Well, that makes perfect sense. I can picture someone wanting to do that to avoid fees. So, yeah, thank you.
For our cats, we also had a 12% increase in adoptions and a general increase in outcomes for cats for Q3 by comparison to Q3 of 2023. Length of stay, you've heard that word and term a lot. It is a key metric of any sheltering operations. Buildings are built with a certain assumption of length of stay. In our case, it was built around the assumption of a 14-day length of stay. I do know that we tend to average more about 30 days for dogs and much longer for cats, though that's primarily because the neonatal ones may have to spend up to 6 to 8 weeks in foster care before they are able to be available for adoption. There's a variety of approaches of measuring length of stay. I do it based on outcome, which is moment that they come in to the moment that they leave. That's the number of days that their length of stay. For our dogs, we saw some interesting things when comparing Q3 across the years. We've done a lot of work on our length of stay, and so I was a little disappointed actually to see the orange grow in that case. That's the 18 to 14 day. While we're built to have about a 14-day length of stay, in my perfect world, it is more in the 0 to 7 day category. That is the one that allows us to maximize the number of kennels that we have and bring over more animals and get them to the community. It's not 1,000% clear as to what led to this increased length of stay. We do know that there seemed to be a bit of weakening kind of adoption fervor over coming in and seeing animals that were new. And maybe it was just the selection of animals, maybe the nice weather, everybody was out on vacation more. It's kind of a tough one to measure totally. It is great, though, that the orange and the blue together, the less than 2 week stay, has gone down, continue to do so. That is the primary metric that I really, really like to see there.
Well, wouldn't you want that to go up? Sorry. Wouldn't you want that to go up because you want less of this 15 to 30 and 31 to 60? So I think you'd want the combined to go up.
Yes,
Yeah.
combined to go up, the length of stay to go down.
Yeah.
Yes,
Gotcha.
apologies.
I think that big orange bar was a lot of over 100-degree weather, and I don't think anybody, dogs, cats, or people, were thinking straight.
They didn't want to adopt a dog and go and,
Didn't want to go out and get in the car.
yeah. This is the numbers behind those charts, just so that we can see them in that format. For cats, since we have so many of the neonatal ones, that is why we have a much larger chunk in that yellow and that gray category of the 31 to 60. We do see some improvement in that, I think, and making sure that we're getting more cats out. And I know that anecdotally, in general, we'll have a fresh batch of cats and kittens every morning, and then by the time people come in the afternoon, they're saying, "Where are all your cats and kittens?" I'm like, "Well, they're in clinic getting surgery. They'll be available tomorrow." So there is a really good demand for adolescent and kittens and even adult cats, and so it's kind of a matter of working our processes to meet that demand more, and that's one of our big focuses for our cat teams in the current times. There's our good old tabular data. And then public services. And for this portion, I will turn it over to Jerlene.
Yeah.
The dogs that are being fostered elsewhere, are they in those numbers? Or are that just the numbers for the dogs on campus in the kennels?
The numbers for both dogs and cats, they include the ones that are in our foster care. If they're in our custody, they're included in those numbers.
Okay, so if they're in somebody's home, whether it's a dog, cat, or kitten, or puppy, it's
Correct.
in those numbers?
Yep.
All right, thank you.
The kennel capacity numbers do not include any of the foster animals, so that they're counted elsewhere.
Hello again, Jerlene Bryant for the record. So public services, NHS provides a wide variety of support for our community, and that goes beyond being the owner guardian surrender facility and the primary transfer partner of Washoe County Regional Animal Services. This includes spay and neuter for community TNR partners, low-cost vaccine and microchip clinics. Our pet pantry program provides food to families in our community experiencing hardship. On average, we saw a significant increase in this previous quarter and the quarter before as compared to last year. On average, we are currently distributing over 18,000 pounds of food for dogs and cats per month to our community. It's staggering, actually. We also provide TNR for free-roaming cats in our community. Our working cat program continues to evolve and expand. We're very proud of that program. Cats that have no address and no colony to go back to, yet don't have the behavior that would be conducive to living in a home. They go out and they become a working cat and productive members of society, and they're serving a purpose and a role. And then we also provide support for local community cat organizations. We also have public services through our Reno campus to our community here in Washoe County. So as you'll see here, our cat neuters and again, this is for owned animals. This is not, I want to Chair Dewar has reminded me a couple times now to make sure that it is clear that we have spay and neuter services for our shelter animals. Of course, they are all sterilized before they are placed up for adoption. And last year, we performed over 7,200 spay and neuter surgeries for those animals. These are for owned animals in our community. So cat neuters were up 42%, cat spays up 63%, dog neuters up 17%, and our microchips are up over 600%. And our vaccinations, so our low-cost vaccine clinics, we're up over 150%. Wow. So NHS now has a low-cost public vaccine and microchip clinic available twice a week, Wednesdays and Sundays. And we have doubled the number of vaccines and microchips that we are providing to the community. We, of course, support our local cat TNR groups, and that support remains strong with available community spay and neuter appointments dedicated to these groups. We continue to expand our public spay and neuter services and hope to once again provide a level of access to affordable spay and neuter that will meet our community's needs. We are not there yet. We are chipping away at it, and we are very motivated to continue to increase this service that we provide to the community. Over 55,000 pounds of food was distributed in the third quarter of 2024, helping an average of 1,230 owned dogs and cats per month and an average of 278 colony cats per month. Our program also is ramping up returning cats directly to field and adopting out working cats, as I already mentioned. We have fielded and responded to 826 phone calls and 801 emails to support the various community members' needs in regards to cats in their community, so just specific to free-roaming cats in the community. After all of those charts and graphs, I always like to leave you with a glimpse at one of our many happy endings we help to facilitate. Our industry is challenging, and it's easy to get caught up in those challenges and lose sight of why we do what we do. So meet Jenny. Jenny came into our care as a tiny 2-month-old kitten, but Jenny needed help. Our medical team diagnosed her with cerebellar hypoplasia, I can never say that word right, CH, which is a neurological condition where the cerebellum, the part of the brain that controls motor function, is underdeveloped. This can lead to issues with balance, coordination, and issues with motor skills. Jenny was in our care for 70 days. She received intense care and resources were invested in her across multiple departments at NHS. In fact, our cat team made a custom feeding stand for her. And it was a really heartwarming thing to see. Jenny is not alone. She's not the only animal that resources like this are invested in, but I thought her story, plus she's very cute, her story was worth sharing. And as you'll see there, she wobbled her way into her new family's heart and is living her best life with them. But it is an example of how we treat each of these animals as an individual. And we were very fortunate that we are able to invest resources into this tiny little 2-month-old kitten because there are many, many, countless shelters across the country that wish they could do that and they're unable to. So we have the generosity of our donors to thank for that, and we appreciate them greatly. And with that, that concludes our presentation, and we are happy to answer any questions if there are any.
Okay. Let me check in with everyone. Questions, comments? Yes? Ms. McMahon?
Julie McMahon for the record. I just wanted to maybe throw this out first next time. With the increase in
Owner surrender that you guys are accommodating, it'd be interesting to see if Washoe County is seeing a decrease in stray animal drop-offs that were considered potentially not necessarily stray pets. And I don't know if you can prove that or not, but I know that a good 6 months to a year ago, that was an issue, and it was directly correlated to the length of time it took for you guys to take them over. Is there any way to prove or disprove any of that?
Cheyenne Shull for the record. I don't know that there's any way we can provide concise data on that, but I definitely do think anecdotally, we see a decrease in the number of abandoned pets that we're dealing with that are brought into the lobby as a stray that belongs to someone else. We still get them. They're microchipped or they belong to someone. The person bringing them in is often the person that they belong to. But I don't know that there's a way to correlate that data. I'll certainly allow for Julian or Trent to chime in on that if they feel differently. I will say that we did see a decrease in the number of animals coming in the last several months based upon stray animals and abandoned animals and all the categories that we handle. That could be attributed to the ability for them to surrender and appropriately rehome their animals.
I don't have any more to add other than that I agree with that. It would be very difficult to ascertain the exact correlation, but looking from the outside in, higher, numbers of owner-surrendered animals, lower number of animals that are strays that are being surrendered. So that was a great question. Thank you.
Now, I don't recall your euthanasia rates this time. Did you show them? Did I miss them?
I think we shared our live release rate. Yeah.
Well, maybe it was the inverse of your live
Just under,
release.
it was just under 93%.
Was live.
Live release rate.
So
mhm. Our save rate.
7% were euthanized roughly. And does that correlate to a number?
If we did the hard calculation, sure, there would be a number. I don't have that number in front of me.
Well, do you, Trent? I mean, a percent is based off of, was there a total? I could calculate it quickly.
Trent, for the record, live release rate includes all the live outcomes, and that means all non-live outcomes. So that includes euthanasia, died in care, lost and stolen occasionally. We didn't have any this
Do
particular
you
quarter.
have a chart on that?
I do. If it can get pulled up again, we can go straight to it and see the actual
Okay.
numbers.
Okay, 57. Well, let me just ask, is this trending up or down? Could we go to that slide? Do you mind? Yeah.
Yeah. So to look just straight at the number chart for the tabular data, you can see that for dogs, the behavioral euthanasia is definitely trending upwards. It went from 13 in Q3 of 2023 to 37 in Q3 of 2024. Overall, our live release rate is roughly the same from previous years. It's just sort of a different mix.
So do you have any feelings about this? I mean, what's driving it?
I think that there's a variety of things that drive it. It's, again, very difficult to break it down and definitively ascertain, but there's certainly a correlation between the higher numbers of publicly surrendered animals. Oftentimes they are being surrendered for behavior or, well, in this case, yeah, it would be the behavior euthanasia. They do not feel safe with this animal. Therefore, and then we do pathway planning on all the animals. We have history on them, that we can get from the owners. Therefore, they are not an adoption candidate. And
Okay,
yeah.
I understand.
Dias Dixon
yeah.
here. Sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead. That's fine.
For the record, when you make your decision on euthanasia, is it still done by a panel?
I'm going to let Trent take this one. It's not necessarily a panel, but it is a collective decision amongst a variety of individuals.
Trent, for the record, there had been a committee in the past. Other places will have a panel that they'll bring together for it. What we have found is related to the ASV guidelines that identify that there's not a particular evaluation or assessment or test that should be used in a pass-fail. That means we know we have to gather data from a larger number of sources. So it is a continuous process of evaluation that goes through where we gather the information, including prior to owner guardian surrender. Our questionnaire is geared to finding some of the questions that help us ascertain the risk to the community, the risk to individuals, the risk to other animals. And then in our care, we include tracking their behavior from the moment that our admissions teams meet them to when our intake is doing their medical exam to when they are transferred to our kennels. These are all entering into the notes into our shelter management system. And then we put those together in what's called a pathway planning document that was developed with the assistance of our behavioral specialist and is one of our key tools that we look through and analyze. And what it puts out isn't a yep, nope, it's not a algebraic method that goes in. It's a method that identifies areas of concerns and says, with this kind of risk, is this an animal who isn't a great candidate for adoption at this moment? Where are the areas of risk? Or in cases of where behavioral euthanasia is potential, it's saying, has it created a very strong level of risk? The individuals involved in the final decisioning, when that information is gathered together, part of it is we do have a 360 committee for dogs, where we bring together representatives of multiple departments to discuss the animals who don't have as straightforward of a pathway. But then that decisioning then goes to the teams of the animals management. So for dogs, it's the dog team management, the new behavior manager, and then myself as well. We'll come together and we'll analyze that information, put the information together, and then work with teams if there's questions, as well as making sure that it feels like a consensus position.
Well, let me ask this, following up. I mean, it appears in raw numbers, it's tripled.
Mm-hmm.
When I just did statistics, it's tripled.
Mm-hmm.
Went from like 10% to, 1% to 4 or 5%. If I did my numbers quickly right, which I may not have. But anyway, it seems to be a fairly significant jump. And so I know you have a behavioral team and all this, but I mean, is something happening in America that the dogs are not behaving as well? Have we changed our methodology so strongly that we're, what do you think here?
Yes, it's certainly a combination of all of that, all of the above. Across the country, shelters are seeing dogs with more adverse behavior and concerns. That is the number one topic on every call I'm on and every conference I go to. There's workshops specific to the behavior and the concerning behavior that shelters are seeing in concerningly higher numbers in shelters. But also, prior to the leadership changes and the significant changes that we had at the Humane Society, well, I'll just say when I came on board, we were actively adopting out dogs with bite history.
I see.
And that was a decision at that time. And while I want to save every life possible, it's why I'm in this field, I also feel very strongly that we're animal welfare professionals and we have a responsibility to our community, and that if we identify unsafe behavior, and it is very concerning unsafe behavior, we should not place that animal back out in the community.
Mm-hmm. So we're having a less tolerance, being more careful, looking for public safety, I guess. But I think it's something we have to keep an eye on, because if we're going just from 2021 to 2, 2022 to 8, 2023 to 13, 2024 to 37, each one is either doubling or tripling from the quarter or from the year before, same quarter. So it's just a concern. It's a red flag to me. And so I thought that's why we're looking at the data, right?
Absolutely. But I would also encourage you to look at the slide of publicly surrendered dogs and the significant increase of the numbers of publicly surrendered dogs, because there is a direct correlation there.
Okay.
So,
Julie McMahon for the record.
Yeah.
I think also, I'm going to do it. I'm going to throw the COVID card out there because these numbers are going to be skewed during this time. We saw significant
Thank you.
decreases in animal intakes, like shelters were emptying during these periods
Right.
of time, and these gradual increases. So now we have dogs that are 4 or 5 years old who have been consistently isolated. It's kind of like saying, why are our college-age students now having trouble because they were in high school during COVID?
COVID, I gotcha.
Yeah, so that kind of a correlation is that we have to take into mind that we likely are still dealing with some repercussions associated with that. And especially in the behavioral side of animals, we do need to take that into consideration when looking at these numbers.
Okay.
yeah.
Because
And
other.
thank you for that. That is-
Other numbers for this quarter were looking very good. So in other words, there were more adoptions and fewer animals coming in, or so it seemed as you were going along your presentation, and then we get to this one. So I thought things were actually improving post-COVID. You know, we're 4 years out. I thought, well, maybe things are leveling off or starting to improve.
Yeah.
But,
It's certainly something that we struggle with, that we don't want to see.
Yeah.
Euthanasia is an unfortunate aspect of sheltering. It is there in
Yeah.
every shelter, and
No, we
we're-
understand. It's
yeah.
just that this one was for behavior versus medical stayed relatively consistent, 14, 14, 16, whereas this one's been doubling to tripling each year. And so I didn't know, I mean, it could be very well that we're assessing them on a different scale, different eyes, you know, different tolerances. I just
Yeah.
don't know.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
There's
Mr.
thorough
Dick-
pathway planning. What I can say is that thorough pathway planning happens for every one of these animals. And it really comes down to, we have no control over the behavior of these, well, I mean, it's dogs, over the behavior of the dogs that come into our care when they're surrendered from the public.
Okay. Mr. Dixon?
Yeah, Diaz, for the record, I just want to say, I agree with you where you have no control. I think it's just looking at when the numbers shift, just trying to figure out what is it about it, because it may change how we provide education in the community. It may change before the dog even comes in. It may be something on the preventative side that we can do from an educational standpoint that stops them from being surrendered in the first place. And I'm just pulling that out of my hat really quick, but numbers always paint a picture. And when you see a shift like that, it just gives us an opportunity to dig in more and figure out where does this shift come from?
Because you have changed practices, right? You have instituted different behavioral assessments, I believe.
Yes, and most significantly, we are not placing dangerous animals back out into the community.
So you're having less tolerance for bad behavior in your mind.
For unsafe behavior.
Unsafe behavior.
Yeah, lots of dogs have bad behavior, but they wouldn't be euthanized for that, only unsafe.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, well, we're going to look closely at this, and I'm going to want to see what the next quarter, and maybe on this one, maybe next time, not just quarter to quarter, because this is only a snapshot, that's 1 quarter of the year, right? This is just the quarter 3.
Yep.
And so it would be good to do on this one for next time, if you could do an annual, you know, show us all of 2020, all of 2021, 22, 23, 24, and you'll have a full number for 24 because you'll have quarter 4. If you could show us, you know, year to year to year, not just quarter to quarter to quarter, I think I'd just like to look at that too, see if there's trends there too.
And if we are invited back to share information to this board in, I think it would be January, is that
Right.
correct? Then we will have year-to-date for all of 2024.
Yeah, but I'm asking if we could go back, aggregate the 2020, 2021, 2, 3, so we'd have
Yeah.
5-year
Yeah, we would.
average. Okay, be good to look at too. All right, any other questions on anything? Yeah, Trudy?
Number of years ago, for 30 days, I was given a dog that bites, and hundreds of dollars later, the dog had to be returned. And I was just not forewarned.
You were what?
I was not forewarned. They just said,
Oh, forewarned.
yes.
Gotcha,
That's a cute dog. Sure, take it home.
gotcha. I am sure. Yeah. Go ahead.
Julie McMahon for the record. On your Reno Public Clinic outcomes or clinic services, you have a pretty good increase in cat spay and neuters. Are those directly correlated to your TNR programs? Are those considered public?
They're public. Mhm.
Yeah, so the TNRs are
It would be
public?
TNR and owned.
Okay. And so.
Any
do you-
non-shelter cat.
Non-shelter, okay. And then it's come up a couple times previously. How are you guys doing in that ability to serve the public more? Like, we're seeing 7 dogs in the big picture.
Yeah, so
What's that looking like for you guys?
Dogs are, we haven't really expanded for dogs. Our focus is on cats.
Okay.
It's a little bit just really kind of inching our way and trying to do the best we can with expanding those services. We just added, I think, a 3rd day and more appointments for cats. So we went from just TNR and not offering owned friendly cats low-cost services to 1 day. Then we increased to 2 days. Now we've increased to 3 days. There are some things that we're doing internally to, one of our bottlenecks or one of our barriers is space for pre and post-surgery for dogs. Cats are easier to fit in. Dogs are more challenging, and so we are doing some minor adjustments and remodeling in our clinic to try to provide more cage space for dogs pre and post-surgery that then we can open up to publicly owned dogs.
Cool. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Well, I thought on this particular slide, I mean, all the numbers were trending very positive. I mean, huge jump in vaccinations, huge jump in microchip. I mean, overall, it just seems like you're doing more.
Thank you. It feels that way.
Okay. All right. Any last questions on this section? Okay, we're going to thank you so much for
Thank
both
you.
of you being here. It's incredibly important for us to understand the whole continuum of care, not just what came in the door, but what went out and how. So thank you.
Thank you.
For being here. Sounds like you might have a supporter with Dr. Gibbons, who's still online with us. So he's obviously got a great interest. We're going to move just to item 8 on hot vehicles with Director Schul. We know it was extremely hot this summer, so I'm good. Oh, okay.
Cheyenne Scholl for the record again. This item is actually a request of this board at the last meeting to bring back a little more in-depth look at where are we seeing the bulk of our hot car calls coming in from. And so what we worked on is, again, a heat map to provide an overview of where those locations are. Unfortunately, it's not as condensed as we would like it to be because, as we predicted, majority of them happen at our box stores, our retail environments, where people are thinking they're going to run into the store for 5 minutes and leave their pet in the asphalt parking lot in the sun in their vehicle. So this breaks down the top 10 locations. As you can see, we've got Costco at the top, with the majority of those coming from this calendar summer. So we did not collect any data further back than this summer.
Right.
Walmart being number 2, and then Home Depot, and then grocery stores, and the mall. Moving down to Safeway and Winco, and then PetSmart, of all places where you can take your dog in with you. So this kind of gives you an overview of what we're up against, and I know that the discussion that we had at the former meeting was about how this board could potentially help. And with regards to the hot car season, it starts in May, April if we have a warm spring, all the way through the end of fall, because even if it's 70 degrees outside, depending on where your car is parked and if the windows are cracked, your vehicle can reach 100 degrees inside. So we definitely struggle with it being a long season, a long time of the year that our officers are responding to these calls. And efforts that we have made in the past is we have collaborated with both SPCA and Nevada Humane Society on a marketing campaign. Most recently with the SPCA, we marketed with them on a billboard campaign and tried to get the messaging out to our community on a larger scale about the importance of leaving your pets at home and that it only takes 5 minutes. And so we have also developed placards, posters that our businesses are welcome to share if they'll post them in their businesses, and then any kind of marketing that we are able to produce on our social media page. Anything beyond that, we have not had the ability to plan and execute, so it's not been I would say, blanketed in the community. So when we're dealing with our retail environments, we're open to suggestions and support in those areas of how we can reach those corporate businesses for a more permanent signage approach is what I would love to see in their parking lots and our casinos and places like that. So this next slide essentially gives you the outcomes. We had approximately 437 calls this summer for animals locked in hot vehicles, and these are the outcomes that we had. One animal death this summer of an animal that was left in a hot vehicle I shared with you all last quarter. That individual had been cited the week before for the same violation. So unfortunately, we're not going to reach everyone, but it doesn't stop us from trying. So with that, I'm open to comments, suggestions, ideas that the board may have about ways in which we can work together. I think now is the time to plan, because by the time it's warm, it's too late for us to be trying to get out there with marketing and a whole plan. So I do believe we can gain the support of our other shelters in the region. It impacts them as well.
I think that was the problem, that we were in the midst of summer and there really was no ability, and I think you're absolutely right. Now is the time for the next few months to work with these. Now, what I'm wondering, first I want to make sure I understand. Notice of violation, 76. Notice civil penalty, 32. What is the difference with those?
So a notice of violation is essentially a warning.
The warning.
Yes, and
The
a notice of
penalty.
civil penalty is a fine.
Gotcha. But then it says, and then there's a verbal warning,
Yes.
which is more like the notice of violation, but it's like your first warning.
Yes, so if the officer arrives and let's say the person's already made it to their vehicle, they're in their vehicle, they're getting ready to leave, the officer can advise the pet owner of the complaint. There may not be a violation in their presence and give them a warning.
Okay.
If you have left your animal in the vehicle, it's too hot and unsafe to do so.
Has your officers had to break any windows?
They have, yes,
They have.
every summer.
Do you know, I mean, do you have a feel for it? Was like 4 or
If
24?
If I had to count off the top of my head, I would say we did 2 or 3 this summer.
Okay. And then what I am thinking about, and I'd love to get some input from the board on how to approach this, but I'm thinking we start obviously with your heat map, the places that have the greatest challenges. And what I'm wondering is, I wonder if it would be effective to put a sign near the door of these facilities that said, did you leave an animal in your car? Just, if so, whatever our answer is, please leave, whatever. And they would put this sign up, let's say in May. It wouldn't be up all year long. But the point of it is to put them on notice that the store is concerned about this issue and doesn't want them leaving them out there even for 5 minutes. What are you thinking?
Cheyenne, for the record, I believe that any kind of signage that we can put that's out there in front of the customer, the consumer, is going to be helpful. I don't know that the poster approach has been effective for us.
What's the poster?
So the posters that we provide essentially has the NRS violation as well as the charges that they can face, and kind of has a chart on there of how quickly the vehicle can heat up. And we provide that to any business that wants them. The problem is they need a place that's open and out there for people to see it as they're entering the business. Right. And that's not always an option, depending on the business. And with the corporate stores, I think I had shared with you, there's all the approvals that have to occur, and corporate doesn't generally allow for flyers and posters and that type of thing to be posted without their approval. And so it's not an easy hurdle to overcome. But yes, I do believe if you could have some way to provide either permanent signage throughout the parking lot or signage at the entrance to the facility that gives messaging that you will be charged for animal cruelty if you choose to leave your animal in the car under these conditions would be helpful for those that actually read the signs.
No, I understand. Another idea is that a lot of them do have some kind of security in their parking lot, the larger groups, or people retrieving carts, that kind of thing. And maybe that they could help us in that way. They themselves could either identify or put a announcement on their system or something. I don't know. I would be interested in, maybe there's some communities across America that have done some things like this. I mean, we have a zero pedestrian fatality project, and we're working with everyone, right? It started with NDOT, and it's threaded throughout all the communities in Nevada, zero fatalities. And this is a different kind of approach, a different issue, but a similar concept. And it's going to take all of us, including private enterprise. So, I don't know, I'm really interested if our board has any thoughts on this. Anyone? Yeah,
Julie McMahon.
Jill? Well, let me start with Jill.
Go ahead, Jill.
Jill Fisher for the record. I want to respond to something you said about maybe having the cart handlers do it. That would be a tough one because that would have to be written into their job description. And corporate stores aren't gonna go for that.
Well, it's just like if they noticed a kid in a car. I just think it's kind of the Good Samaritan thing more than a job assignment.
Cheyenne, for the record, if I can maybe clarify, I think what you're getting at is you're wanting the employee to report the issue, not to break the window.
Correct.
That reporting requirement could, depending on the business, could be incorporated into their job description. But there are protected, first responders that are given the ability to break windows, and those are
Yeah, I
very
wasn't
explicitly.
suggesting they do anything.
No.
Just to report it to their management. Hey, I saw there was a car in aisle 7 that, looks like it has a dog inside.
Yes, and I do think that that would be a reasonable approach if the business was open to that. And I think another element of what challenges we face is we have a lot of tourists that come through our casinos, and they have pets with them, and the casinos aren't necessarily allowing them to take the pets inside or into their hotel room, and so they leave them in their vehicles. And sometimes they have motorhomes, and if they don't have air running, then it's not a great environment for the pets. So that's another challenge we face.
Okay. Jill?
Jill Fisher for the record. My concern is that the business won't follow through. I've reported children left in cars. I've reported unplacarded people using handicap spots when there's someone circling with a ramp. And they won't do anything. They said it's not our job to enforce laws or anything. There's nothing we can do.
Okay.
And that's a concern because if we do go to them with this and nothing happens, what's the point?
Well, I don't know. I kind of live in the world of nothing ventured, nothing gained. I'm at least willing to try. So anyway, but other board members, thoughts on this? Is this something we should tackle as a group? Anyone?
Julie McMahon for the
Yeah.
record. I just want to say, Cheyenne, you've been talking about how your team is a little bit on the skinny side. Doing something like this to try to get corporate entities to participate, casinos, and obviously grocery stores and things, that's where most of it's happening. That would be a full-time job for somebody to get in there, solicit, go through legal aspect, get approval. I mean, I know when I do our memorandums of understanding with veterinary clinics, it takes
Yeah.
weeks and months and years, and it can be a full-time position just to do things like that. And so it's a lofty idea. It is something that we have to consider in the big picture of how is that successfully executed, and do we have the resources to do that at this point? I think at one point it would have been super easy just to walk down the street and go to Joe's Market and ask them to put it in the window, and they say, sure, I'm happy to, no problem. But we have all of these levels of corporate entities that make it a unique challenge that we have to consider. And that's where I think we need to look at, if we're going to execute this, where does the resources come from to do so, and will they follow through? That's the other part.
Anyone? Yeah?
Sorry. Paul Anderson for the record, and I agree. I mean, everyone in business is pretty much as thin as they can be right now just to make a go of it. My suggestion is we look at the heat map and take the top two. You've got one Costco in Reno and one in Sparks, and let's give it a shot. I personally had a very positive experience with the Smiths and Sparks, that it was a conversation of, please help us be good neighbors. And lo and behold, they did exactly, and it cost them, I'm sure, in the tens of thousands of dollars to make the change. So it's out there, but I wouldn't say that we're going to expect 100% cooperation, but let's at least start with the top two and see if there's some way that we can, whether it's a coordination working with you all and maybe your local representatives or something, see if we could make a difference. But that's my thought.
Great. Yeah, Ms. Garcia?
Thank you, Commissioner Garcia, for the record. You've been here a long time. Have we ever done an organized campaign for this in the past that you know of?
Cheyenne, for the record. So as organized as we have done in the past, it's essentially been the poster development, the billboards, and I'll be honest with you, the SPCA carried the lion's share of the weight on that. They have the resources and the ability to market with the Lamar billboard folks and some marketing people on staff. And so it's definitely more in their wheelhouse to help us with some of those things. But the poster is really the farthest that we've been able to get, and we have to redo it because the code has changed. The NRS statute has changed, so.
I guess I should have said it on social or on the news networks, anything like that?
Yes, so we have utilized news, and news is very interested in this story. They come out every summer, and they ride along with my staff, attempting to capture, folks in the act of leaving pets in their cars, and every summer it happens. And so, getting that educational component out there and helping, if we can capture an interaction happening with the officer and the individual, it's even more helpful to understand from the person who left the animal in the car's perspective of what made you think that was okay to do. We don't often get those volunteers to interview, but we did have this summer somebody at Costco that did speak to the camera, and he told them he was very apologetic and he would never do it again. So I think the more of those stories we can capture, I think those will resonate more with your pet owner in terms of people that can relate to, I thought I was just going to run in for a few minutes and grab a few things, but understanding the impact.
And to blend the ideas previously mentioned, partnering with a corporate entity that would be interested in sponsoring perhaps a more consistent news segment in the summer of 2025 wouldn't put any burden on you. You may have to come in and do a ride along or something like that. But if we can kind of leverage what the interest and appetite that already exists in our community without putting more on our staff, I think I would be very supportive of that for the upcoming summer.
So maybe you're saying maybe a corporate donor to continue a PSA?
Yeah, so we already partner with Pet Station for the microchipping program. If we could find a entity that has that broad reach, has that branding, and they're really passionate about animal welfare, it could be a non-animal related corporation or business in town, but they just really want this to be more of an awareness. I think that would be wonderful to give them that torch to carry.
Yeah, great. Mr. Dixon?
The only thing I would add to that, I think that's excellent, is to reach out to some HVAC companies and you get them to be tagged in because people are paying attention to that. But the big thing that I would do is look at, some of your partners that you have in Arizona, where it's Phoenix or Vegas, some of those really hot places. Don't reinvent the wheel. What's going on? What are things that they have already accomplished? And then we just copy it.
And Trudy Broussard, for the record, I agree entirely. That was what was on my mind. The network that you work in, the network that Humane Society works in, SPCA, ask. It gets hot in Missouri in the summer, so I thought of Phoenix first, but reach out across the nation if you can and see if somebody has found a solution. I hope that's like type an email and send all, do not reply all.
Okay. Well, we're brainstorming here. We have some ideas, but I would like us to do some planning, and even if it is increased public awareness campaign with a corporate donor or something that we could help individually. I mean, I don't know what the response was from Smith's. You said they were supportive, but what happened?
They went above and beyond to correct the issue.
So what did they do with you said tens of thousands of dollars?
They put in a privacy fence along the entire property that was up against the neighborhood.
Was it for a different issue or this?
It was a different issue.
Oh,
but
a different
What I'm saying
issue.
is that
Okay, they're willing to help out,
there are
solve a
times
problem.
where we could get people to cooperate.
Gotcha. Okay, really good. All right, well, it's our first brainstorm. Why don't we discuss it again in January? If you've made any progress or still at zero, maybe we can amp up our efforts to help in this area.
Sounds
Okay.
good. Thank you all.
Okay. We don't need a motion here, so we're going to move on to item 9, which is about the dates of our meetings. And do you have a slide on that?
We do. We have a 2025 calendar.
Okay, really tiny. Could you read off
There
the
we go.
proposed dates for us?
So Cheyenne, for the record, we are hoping to schedule our 2025 quarterly advisory board meetings for the whole year.
Right.
And so historically, we have aimed to shoot for the fourth Friday of the month. That works well for our data record reporting and quarterly, reports that we pull. And so that would be the goal, and those are the proposed bolded dates on each of the months. And we tried to eliminate any holidays that we were aware of and any known conflicts.
Because you have quite a few highlighted here, and they're not fourth Fridays.
The
Yeah.
bolded ones are the proposed
The
dates.
other ones are your holidays.
They're
or
holidays,
whatever.
yes, that's correct.
Yeah. Okay, so I know that you generally don't work on Fridays, so is that still okay, or you?
Yes.
Let me ask the board though, because we did have some challenges with this meeting. I know we looked at the Thursday, we looked at, because some members have standing meetings on that fourth Friday, I think, Ms. Garcia, potentially you. And I don't want to knowingly set up the meetings when we know we have conflicts, so. There's only 4, so could we just take them one by one?
Sure.
Okay, so you're proposing the first one be January 24?
Correct.
Okay. Could we just go ahead and look at our calendars? And I know not everyone will be here going forward, but probably most will. And you're recommending, the January 24. Just going to that myself. I usually have had no conflicts, but I personally will be out that day, just to let you know. I'm going to be out of the country. That doesn't mean we don't do it, but I'm just sharing. Yeah, it's Vancouver, which is really awesome. I'll be flying back that day, but I won't be here in time. And then the next one you have is for April 25th.
Correct.
Okay, so let's just take a peek at April 25th. Okay. I've got personally no conflict. Anyone? Okay. You kind of do?
I kind of do on Fridays in the winter, but I can With enough notice, I can
Yeah. Well, and I haven't taken Thursdays off the list because I'm very uncomfortable bringing you back to work when it's not your regular schedule, frankly. I'm just being honest. But anyway, okay, so we have a potential conflict on April 25th, but also it sounds like July? January, I mean. Okay, and then what about July 25th? I should have no problem personally.
January 24. No.
25th. July. Okay. Definitely works for me. And then the last one was October 24th, which looks fine for me. But let me ask, so we have at least two members that are having challenges with the January and the April. So how do we feel about doing it on a Thursday those days? I mean, I will still, I cannot participate on Thursday either. I'll still be in Vancouver, so it doesn't matter for me. But I'm more concerned about Jill right now, or pushing it to the following week. I don't know. Always just want to make sure we have a good quorum. I know things come up unexpectedly. What's that? Thursdays work. Okay.
Commissioner Garcia, for the record, I would prefer that we do it on a day that our director
Right.
is more feasible. So yeah, it pains me that you come in on your non-scheduled days. So
Right?
if
It
the
does
board
me
is
too.
amenable to it, I'd like to support it on a Thursday afternoon if possible.
Yeah. How do you feel about that, Ms. Schul, Director Schul?
Cheyenne, for the record, I am open to what the board, what works for the board. You guys have very busy schedules, and so
Okay.
to align everyone's schedule, I think it was very difficult for Julie for Thursdays, if I'm not mistaken.
Is
But
it still? This
Oh, yeah,
coming year?
forever, because I teach lab every Thursday.
Forever.
Forever.
Okay.
So
Until they fire me.
I'm open to, it's only quarterly. I would just ask that it's in the morning, not in the afternoon, because it takes my whole day if it's in the afternoon.
Yeah.
So,
how do you feel about that? I mean, okay. Go for Friday morning? Okay.
but I appreciate the consideration.
Yeah. All right, well, why don't we go forth and adopt these dates? We already know that one or two of us will miss some meetings, and we'll just go with it. And, that's fine with me. I mean, when is aren't you on RTC? Is it on Friday mornings, though?
Yeah.
Is it on that Friday morning?
I'll look at it for next year.
Okay. Okay, well, I'm going to propose something. If it is, I want to move it, because I don't want to, if we have a standing problem on Thursday and we have a standing problem on Friday morning, I don't want to do that. Like, I know we can find a date, even if it's a Monday, where it's going to work for everyone. I'm very confident that we will, and I want to do that. I don't want to just stick with what we have done in the past, and you may have new members, we don't, and our electeds, we don't know if we'll be appointed each year. That's a question every year. And I don't know if anybody's term's up here, but the point is, we should just at least try to pick some dates that we know. And so I'm going to ask you to do this. Ms. Garcia, could you check with RTC calendar? And we know we don't want to do a Thursday. It's likely the Friday morning is challenging. It's also challenging for you. I am very open to even looking at Monday, which has very few meetings typically scheduled. Not Monday morning, because that does have meetings scheduled. Oh, is that when your council is?
City council this is Paul Anderson for the record. Spark City Council meets on the fourth Monday of the week, every month. So,
Yeah,
That would be a direct conflict.
yeah. So this is what I mean. We just have to, I may just do some homework, and why don't we, this is what I'd like to do. I'd like to adopt this tentative, but I'd like to, by the next meeting, I would have liked you guys to have actually called all 7 of us and see what are the bad standing dates. And I have probably 5 of them, and other people do too. I happen to know a lot of Thursdays are bad. But just like you, I have a lot of standing board meetings on Thursdays. But, maybe the answer is early Friday afternoon. I hate to do it, but it might be like the 4th Thursday instead of the 3rd Thursday, stuff like that, So we just need to do, I think, a little more research.
Cheyenne, for the record, the scheduling that we've done in the past is using an email with availability. I don't know if that still works for everyone. It's really hard to play phone tag. I've got Serena, who also has a full-time job of working up front in my lobby. So
Yeah.
I don't want to have to anchor her to playing phone tag with 7 of you all. If that works for you all, I
Well, a
would
different way to-
propose that.
Well, a
we-
different way to do it is, I mean, we can send you our standing conflicts,
Okay, that would actually be really helpful.
right? If we
Yes.
do that, if we take the responsibility for sending, I mean, I'll have quite a few, but there's quite a few open even with the standing conflicts, you know? And I bet if she can kind of maneuver through, she's going to find some good times. Okay?
Sounds good.
Okay. And we're going to try to not do it on Friday, given your schedule. No, I mean, we're going to
appreciate
start
it.
there. We're going to, we may have to default to Friday. That's all there is to it. Let me ask the board, I mean, should we take a tentative approval of these dates or wait till next meeting? Because we will need to know at some point for the January meeting, obviously.
That is here for the record.
Yeah.
I need to have a tentative so I can fill in that space. Otherwise, it's going to get filled in with something.
All right, so let's go with the tentative dates. I'm looking for a motion to adopt the tentative dates, and we're calling them tentative until we get a little more information from each of us, okay? I'm looking for a motion.
Jill Fisher, for the record, I move that we tentatively approve these dates.
Okay,
Second.
all right. So we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
And opposed? All right, unanimously passes. Congrats. But we're also going to look for a refinement, okay? All right, moving on to our last action or discussion item, which is any members or staff have announcements, requests for information, or requests for future agenda items. Any announcements? Yes?
Another announcement. When I was reading over our minutes from the last meeting, I realized we had had a conversation about the aging facility and air conditioning and the heating, and I was wondering if there is a county resource for solar panels, because I know they were putting it in schools. I lost track of that, but if that exists, it would be a wonderful supplement to what exists, and the sun shines here.
Yeah. Okay. Well, perhaps that would be a larger item to just report on the condition of the facilities and areas where you think we're going to have to make changes over the coming 5 years. That's how they usually look at capital improvements, whether it's HVAC or room for pets, or, you know, you've remodeled for the veterinary facilities. Is that sufficient, or are you going to have to do more remodeling, et cetera? I think it really would be good to talk about a 5-year capital plan and what are your needs at this time that you could foresee, and maybe work with someone in Public Works at the county to help with that assessment.
Cheyenne, for the record, I can certainly work on that, and I can tell you there's been a number of improvements that we're working on internally as a result of needs for maintenance and upkeep of our facility this year. So we've had a number of above base budget requests to take care of those needs, but we're certainly happy to bring back.
Okay, that would be very
Some
good.
discussion.
And I'm going to also ask our partners over at Nevada Humane Society, because you're all living in the same building. It is 20 years old. It does probably need somethings, and we should probably look at it together. You know, what's done in HVAC affects both sides of the buildings, for example.
Yes, and I do think if there are grants for solar, don't ignore them.
Right, well, they are out there. I'll just tell you, my solar, which I have 36 panels, is 15 years old. And right now, today, we are looking at upgrading it and getting a new grant, which is available from MV Energy right now. And they are going, there's federal tax waivers, which the government is not getting taxed. But anyway, there are grants out there, and so it's worth a look. So if you could both bring that information back, maybe you can collaborate on it. I know, remarkable, but it would be very helpful to us to be able to advise and then provide advice to the government agencies who we're supposed to be advising. Okay, very nice. Anything else from anyone? Okay, I think we'll close, I don't have anything either, so we'll close out item 10, go to our final public comment. And Madam Clerk, has anyone registered or have a hand raised?
There is no additional public comment.
Okay. Anyone on Zoom need to make additional public comment? Dr. Gibbons has raised his hand. Go ahead, Dr. Gibbons.
Thank you, but it's not a doctor.
I thought you said you were a veterinary.
No, I'm not.
Okay.
On
Mr.
Monday-
Gibbons?
Yeah, on Monday, I'll call the Costco corporate headquarters in Kirkland, talk to the office of the president. I'm sure he's not going to be happy to hear what's been going on in their parking lot. So that's one comment. The second comment is, I'm glad, the way I understand it, there's some kind of, I'm going to call it a record of decision on these euthanasia. I think the animals deserve that. I didn't realize that the other organization, I guess it's Animal Control or Animal Services, is doing euthanasia as well.
Yes.
So a lot of the attention was on the Humane Society, but there's euthanasia going on at the other end also.
Right.
Same questions. There's a record of decision, who makes the decisions, et cetera. Thank you.
All right, I think that is worthy of a conversation of just what is the process and getting a little more information. We did talk about it for animal control. We noted, for example, they did not euthanize for space this quarter. We discussed that. And we also discussed, the conditions under which they are euthanizing. And often you mentioned, Cheyenne, you get animals in and they just can't even survive medically the 5-day hold.
Cheyenne, for the record, we also provided an update to this board last year regarding our process, and it
Yeah.
is similar to that of the Humane Society. There is a committee of review, and we have a whole process of pathway planning and risk assessment, and as we work through our partnership with the Humane Society, we will be marrying that process a little closer and using those benchmarks for dangerous animals much more closely than we have in the past.
Well, since it was a discussion here today, and in addition to Mr. Gibbons' comments, I'm interested as well in that. That's why I brought the topic up when I did, and other people were interested, and we're seeing these increasing numbers. So I'd like us to try to dig in and really try to understand it better. What is driving? Is it all about not having dogs that bite go out in the community, or is it something else? So anyway, if you could try to agendize that, sort of the process, and any explanations or assessments you've been able to do in the quarter for both of you on what's affecting euthanasia, that'd be helpful. Okay. All right. Well, I think we'll close out this item, and thank you again, Mr. Gibbons, for participating. And then we are going to stand adjourned. Okay. Thanks, everyone.